The champagne flutes were arranged in perfect rows on our granite countertop, each one catching the late afternoon sunlight streaming through our kitchen windows. 24 glasses for 24 guests, all of Angela's friends, naturally. I'd spent 3 hours cleaning the house, 2 hours at the grocery store, and another hour setting up decorations for our 15th wedding anniversary party. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was throwing a celebration for a marriage that felt ended. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. Nathan, did you remember to chill the white wine? Angela's voice carried that familiar edge of irritation as she swept into the kitchen, her dark hair pulled back in that severe bun she wore when she meant business. Of course I did, I replied, opening the refrigerator to reveal 3 bottles of Chardonnay nestled between the beer and leftover pizza. Wouldn't want your music school friends to think we're uncivilized. She didn't catch the sarcasm. She never did anymore. Angela Barlow, my wife of 15 years, mother of our 17-year-old daughter Emily, and director of the prestigious Crescendo Academy of Music, had perfected the art of looking through me rather than at me. Today was no different. She wore her black cocktail dress, the one that used to make my heart skip a beat. Now it just reminded me of funeral attire. The Kesslers will be here at 6, she said, checking her phone for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. Make sure you don't mention anything about your IT consulting work. They find technology talk boring. I bit back my response. Apparently, the work that paid for our mortgage, her car, and Emily's piano lessons was too mundane for polite conversation. Got it. I'll stick to discussing the weather and how wonderful you are. This time she did catch the sarcasm, shooting me a look that could freeze hell over. Just try to be charming for once, Nathan. It won't kill you. The doorbell rang, saving us both from escalating into one of our increasingly frequent arguments. I straightened my tie, the blue one Emily had given me for Father's Day, and prepared to play the role of the happy husband for the next 4 hours. The first guests were Gina Martinez and Paula Stevens, Angela's closest friends from the music school. Gina taught violin and had a mouth that could spread gossip faster than wildfire. Paula handled the business side of things and had always treated me like I was some kind of necessary evil in Angela's otherwise perfect life. Nathan! Gina air-kissed both my cheeks, her perfume overwhelming. You look wonderful. Doesn't he look wonderful, Paula? Paula's smile was about as genuine as a $3 bill. Absolutely. Angela is so lucky to have such a supportive husband. The way she said supportive made it sound like a character flaw. More guests arrived in waves, music teachers, parents from the academy, members of the school board. I played bartender and host, making small talk about the weather and complimenting everyone on their outfits. The conversations flowed around me like water around a stone, and I caught fragments that made my jaw clench. Derek's been such a help with the new building fund. His real estate expertise is exactly what the school needed. And those hands of his, so talented. Derek Stiles. The name that had been popping up in Angela's conversations more and more frequently over the past 6 months. Failed musician turned real estate agent, with his perfectly styled silver hair and his vintage Mustang convertible. He'd joined our social circle through the music school's expansion project, and somehow managed to charm his way into everyone's good graces, including, apparently, my wife's. I was refilling the cheese platter when I overheard Gina and Paula talking in hushed tones by the living room window. She's glowing, Paula whispered. I haven't seen Angela this happy in years. Well, can you blame her? Gina's voice dropped even lower. Derek has that effect on women. All that artistic passion, you know? So different from. They both glanced toward the kitchen where I was standing, and I pretended to be fascinated by arranging crackers. Nathan's a good provider, Paula said diplomatically, but sometimes a woman needs more than just stability. Exactly. She needs someone who understands her creative soul, someone who can match her intensity. I gripped the cheese knife a little tighter than necessary, My creative soul, apparently, was about as exciting as watching paint dry. Emily appeared at my elbow, looking uncomfortable in the dress her mother had insisted she wear. At 17, she had Angela's dark hair but my green eyes, and thankfully, she'd inherited my ability to see through bullshit. "Dad, this party is torture," she whispered. "Mrs. Martinez just asked me if I'm planning to follow in Mom's footsteps. When I said I might study computer science, she looked like I'd announced I was joining a cult." I smiled at my daughter, the one bright spot in this whole charade. "Hang in there, kiddo. Just a few more hours. Where's the guest of honor anyway?" Emily glanced around the crowded living room. "Shouldn't Mom be mingling with her adoring public?" Good question. I scanned the room and didn't see Angela anywhere. She'd been here 20 minutes ago, accepting compliments on the decorations I'd hung and the food I'd prepared. Now she was nowhere to be found. "I'll go find her," I told Emily. "Keep an eye on things here." I checked our bedroom first. Empty. The bathroom was vacant too. I was heading toward the back patio when I heard Angela's voice coming from my home office, the door slightly ajar. I know, but he's right here," she was saying in a low, intimate tone I hadn't heard her use in months. "The party was his idea. Can you believe that? Like throwing a party is going to fix anything." I froze in the hallway, my hand halfway to the door handle. "I miss you too," Angela continued. "This whole thing is such a charade. I keep thinking about last night, about what you said." My heart started pounding so hard, I was sure she'd hear it through the door. "Tomorrow night?" "Yes, I can get away. I'll tell him I'm staying late for the school board meeting." "He never questions anything anymore." "No, Derek, he doesn't suspect a thing. Nathan's completely oblivious." The floor seemed to tilt under my feet. "Derek." She was talking to Derek Stiles, the real estate agent who'd been helping with the school expansion. The man whose name kept coming up in conversations. The man with the artistic soul and talented hands. "I have to go," Angela whispered. "People will start looking for me." "I love you too." I heard her moving toward the door and quickly stepped back, ducking into the guest bathroom just as she emerged from the office. Through the crack in the door, I watched her smooth her dress and check her reflection in the hallway mirror before returning to the party with a bright smile. I stayed in the bathroom for a full 5 minutes, staring at myself in the mirror. Nathan Barlow, 44 years old, IT consultant, faithful husband, devoted father. Apparently also complete idiot. The signs had been there for months, hadn't they? The late nights at school, the mysterious phone calls, the way she'd started dressing up for work, the distance in bed, the irritation at everything I said or did, the way she lit up when Derek's name came up in conversation. I'd been so focused on keeping the peace, on being the stable provider, that I'd missed my wife falling in love with another man. When I finally returned to the party, Angela was holding court near the fireplace, regaling everyone with stories about the music school's upcoming gala. She looked radiant, animated in a way I hadn't seen in years. Derek wasn't here tonight, probably a wise choice, but his presence seemed to hover over everything like invisible perfume. "There he is!" Mr. Kessler, the school board chairman, raised his glass as I approached. "The man of the hour!" 15 years of marriage. That's quite an accomplishment these days. "Indeed it is," I replied, accepting the congratulations and backslaps from the assembled guests. 15 years of surprises. Angela shot me a sharp look, but her smile never wavered. "Nathan's always been full of surprises. Haven't you, darling?" The endearment sounded like glass breaking. The party dragged on for another 2 hours. I played my part perfectly. The devoted husband, the gracious host, the man who had everything. Inside, my mind was racing, replaying every conversation, every late night, every time Angela had mentioned Derek's name with just a little too much enthusiasm. By 9 o'clock, the last guest had left. Emily had escaped to her room hours earlier, claiming homework. Angela was in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher with the efficiency of someone eager to get the task over with. "That went well," she said without looking at me. The Kesslers seemed impressed with the house. Did they? I'm glad your friends approve of our home. She paused in her loading, sensing something in my tone. What's that supposed to mean? I leaned against the counter, studying my wife's face. She was still beautiful at 41, still the woman I'd fallen in love with in graduate school. But there was something different now, something harder around the edges. Nothing, I said finally. I'm just tired. It's been a long day. She nodded, clearly relieved to avoid a deeper conversation. I'm going to finish cleaning up and then head to bed. I have an early meeting tomorrow. With the school board? Yes. The lie came so easily, it was almost impressive. We're discussing the building fund. Derek thinks we might be able to break ground by spring. There it was again. Derek thinks. Derek says. Derek's opinion on everything from real estate to the weather to my wife's schedule. Sounds exciting, I said. I'm sure Derek has lots of insights to share. Angela's hands stilled on the wine glasses. For just a moment, I thought she might confess everything. Instead, she straightened her shoulders and gave me that practiced smile. He's been very helpful with the expansion project. The school is lucky to have his expertise. I'm sure it is, I thought. I'm sure his expertise extends to all sorts of areas. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Angela slept beside me. Or pretended to sleep. I couldn't tell anymore. Everything felt like performance now, like we were actors playing roles in a marriage that had ended months ago without anyone bothering to tell me. Tomorrow, I decided, I was going to start paying attention. Really paying attention. Because Nathan Barlow might be oblivious, but he wasn't stupid. And if my wife thought she could play me for a fool while she carried on with her artistic soulmate, she was about to learn just how wrong she was. The digital clock read 2:47 a.m. when I finally drifted off to sleep, and my last conscious thought was wondering how long this had been going on. How many lies? How many secret phone calls? How many times had I been the clueless husband while my wife planned her new life with another man? I was about to find out. The next morning, Angela was gone before I woke up. Her side of the bed was cold, and there was no note, no goodbye kiss, no acknowledgement that we'd just celebrated 15 years of marriage the night before, just the lingering scent of her perfume and an empty coffee cup in the sink. I found Emily in the kitchen, eating cereal and scrolling through her phone. Mom left early, she said without looking up. Something about a breakfast meeting with donors. Another lie. Angela hated breakfast meetings, always said they interfered with her morning vocal exercises, but I just nodded and poured myself coffee from the pot she'd made, one small mercy in an increasingly cold household. You okay, Dad? You look like you didn't sleep much. Emily had always been perceptive, more so than either Angela or I had been at her age. She saw through people's facades with uncomfortable accuracy. Just thinking about work stuff, I lied, adding it to the growing pile of deceptions in our house. How's school going? Any college visits coming up? She brightened at the change of subject. Actually, I was thinking about touring the computer science program at Northwestern. I know Mom wants me to focus on music, but honestly, Dad, I think I'd rather build software than perform Chopin for the rest of my life. I felt a surge of pride. Emily had inherited my logical mind along with my green eyes. I think that's a great idea. Want me to set up a campus visit? Would you? Mom's going to hate it. Let me worry about your mother. You focus on what makes you happy. Emily grinned and gave me a quick hug before grabbing her backpack. Thanks, Dad. You're the best. After she left for school, I sat alone in our kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of last night's party. A few champagne flutes still sat on the counter, lipstick stains on the rims like evidence of crimes I was only beginning to understand. I called in sick to work, something I rarely did, and spent the morning cleaning up. But my mind wasn't on the task. It was replaying every interaction from the past 6 months, looking for clues I'd missed. The new clothes Angela had bought, for work, the way she'd started going to the gym again after years of making excuses. The sudden interest in weekend professional development workshops that always seemed to run late. The phone calls she'd take in another room, claiming they were about boring school business. How had I been so blind? Around noon, I drove to Crescendo Academy. I told myself I was just bringing Angela lunch, playing the thoughtful husband role. But really, I wanted to see Derek Stiles for myself. I wanted to understand what my wife saw in him that she couldn't find in me. The music school occupied a converted Victorian mansion in one of Chicago's more upscale neighborhoods. Angela had been director for 8 years, transforming it from a struggling community program into an elite academy for wealthy families who wanted their children to have cultural refinement. I parked across the street and watched the building for 20 minutes. Students came and went carrying instrument cases. Parents in expensive cars dropped off and picked up their future prodigies. Everything looked normal, professional, respectable. Then Derek's red Mustang convertible pulled into the parking lot. I'd seen the car before at various school functions, but I'd never paid much attention to its owner. Now I studied him as he climbed out of the driver's seat. Mid-40s, tall and lean, with silver-gray hair that looked deliberately tousled. He wore dark jeans and a leather jacket that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. He moved with the kind of easy confidence that came from never having to worry about making mortgage payments or whether the insurance would cover Emily's dental work. This was a man who lived for the moment, who probably wrote poetry and talked about following your passion and living authentically. I watched him walk into the building like he owned it, and something cold settled in my stomach. My phone buzzed with a text from Angela. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Okay. Love you." She didn't respond. That evening I picked up Emily from her friend's house and took her to dinner at our usual pizza place. She chattered about school and her college plans, and I tried to focus on her words instead of the growing certainty that my marriage was over. "Dad, you're being weird," Emily said finally, twirling cheese around her fork. "You keep spacing out." "Sorry, kiddo. Just tired." "Is everything okay with you and Mom?" "You guys have been, I don't know, different lately." I looked at my daughter's concerned face and felt a stab of guilt. How much had she noticed? How much was our marital dysfunction affecting her? "We're just going through a rough patch," I said carefully. "Nothing for you to worry about. But you're okay, right? Like, you and Mom aren't going to get divorced or anything?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. "Why would you ask that?" Emily shrugged, suddenly looking younger than her 17 years. "I don't know. You guys barely talk anymore, and Mom's always at work now. Plus, she's been happier lately, but not around us. Like she's happy about something we're not part of. Kids see everything. They notice patterns adults think they're hiding. Emily had picked up on Angela's affair before I'd even admitted it to myself. I don't know what's going to happen," I told her honestly. "But whatever does happen, it won't change how much I love you." "That's never going to change, okay?" She nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. Another casualty of Angela's midlife awakening. When we got home at 8:30, Angela's car wasn't in the driveway. I helped Emily with her calculus homework and then retreated to my office, ostensibly to catch up on some client work. But instead, I found myself opening a new browser window and typing Derek Stiles Real Estate Chicago into the search bar. His professional website popped up first. Headshots showed him in expensive suits, standing in front of luxury properties with that same confident smile. Specializing in high-end residential and commercial properties, the bio read. Derek brings 15 years of experience and a musician's attention to detail to every transaction. A musician's attention to detail. Of course. I dug deeper, finding his social media profiles. Photos of him at gallery openings, wine tastings, charity fundraisers. Always impeccably dressed, always surrounded by attractive, cultured-looking people. His Instagram was full of artfully photographed meals, vintage guitars, and inspirational quotes about living life to the fullest. This was Angela's type, apparently. The sophisticated, artistic man who posted photos of sunsets and talked about authentic experiences. Everything I wasn't. At 10 o'clock, I heard Angela's car in the driveway. I quickly closed the browser and opened a spreadsheet, trying to look busy when she came upstairs. "How was your meeting?" I asked without turning around. "Productive. We made some good progress on the building fund." I swiveled in my chair to face her. She was standing in the doorway, still in her work clothes, but somehow disheveled. Her lipstick was gone, and her hair had that slightly mussed look that suggested things I didn't want to think about. "That's great. Derek must be pleased with how things are moving along." Something flickered across her face, surprise maybe, or guilt. "Yes, he's very committed to the project." "I'll bet he is," I thought. "Angela, can I ask you something?" She tensed. "What? Are you happy? I mean, really happy? With us? With our life?" For a moment, her mask slipped. I saw something raw and conflicted in her expression, something that looked almost like regret. But then, she pulled herself together, straightening her shoulders and giving me that practiced smile. "Of course I'm happy." "Why would you ask that?" "You just seem different lately." "Distracted. Like your mind is somewhere else." "I've been busy with work. The expansion project is taking up a lot of mental energy. More lies. Smooth, practiced lies delivered with the confidence of someone who'd been rehearsing them." "Right," I said. "The expansion project." She studied my face, trying to read my expression. "Nathan, is there something specific you want to talk about?" This was my chance. I could confront her directly, demand the truth, force the conversation we'd been avoiding for months. But looking at her standing there in our bedroom doorway, I realized I wasn't ready. Not yet. "No," I said. "I'm just tired." "Long day." Relief flooded her features. "Okay. Well, I'm going to take a shower and go to bed. Don't stay up too late." She disappeared into our bathroom, and a few minutes later I heard the shower running. I sat there staring at my computer screen, listening to the sound of my wife washing off another man's touch, and felt something fundamental shift inside me. Nathan Barlow, the understanding husband, the accommodating provider, the man who kept the peace at all costs. That version of me was dying. In its place, something harder was taking shape. Something that was tired of being taken for granted, tired of being lied to, tired of playing the fool in his own life. I opened a new browser window and started researching private investigators in Chicago. If Angela wanted to play games, I was going to learn the rules, and I was going to win. The shower was still running when I found the website for Halloran Investigations. Discreet, professional, results-oriented, the tagline promised, specializing in marital investigations. I picked up my phone and dialed the number before I could lose my nerve. "Halloran Investigations, this is Mike." "Hi," I said quietly, glancing toward the bathroom door. "I think my wife is having an affair. I need proof." Mike Halloran looked exactly like Central Casting would order for a private investigator. Graying hair, weathered face, and eyes that had seen too much of humanity's worst impulses. His office was in a strip mall between a tax preparation service and a dry cleaner, which somehow made the whole thing feel more real and less like a movie. 15 years of marriage, he said, reviewing the notes he'd taken during our initial conversation. One daughter, 17. Wife is having an affair with Derek Stiles, real estate agent involved with her music school. You overheard a phone conversation confirming the relationship. That's right. The words felt strange coming out of my mouth, like I was talking about someone else's life. And you want documentation? Photos, recordings, evidence that would hold up in divorce proceedings. I nodded, though the word divorce still felt surreal. 3 days ago, I'd been planning our anniversary party. Now I was sitting in a private investigator's office discussing the end of my marriage. Mr. Barlow, I have to ask, are you sure you want to go down this road? Sometimes ignorance really is bliss. Once you have proof, you can't unknow what you know. I thought about Emily's worried face at dinner, about Angela's lies, about the way she'd looked at me lately, like I was an obstacle to be managed rather than a person she'd once loved. I'm sure, I said. I need to know the truth. Halloran nodded and quoted me his rates. It wasn't cheap, but I had money saved from a consulting contract I'd finished last month. Money I'd been planning to use for a family vacation. The irony was bitter. I'll need a few days to establish their patterns, Halloran explained. Follow them, see where they go, when they meet. Most cheating spouses are creatures of habit once they get comfortable. They think they're being careful, but they usually aren't. That evening, I sat through dinner with Angela and Emily, making small talk about school and work while my mind raced with questions. How long had this been going on? How many people knew? Was I the last to figure it out? The clueless husband everyone pitied behind his back? Dad, you're doing it again, Emily said. The spacing out thing. Sorry, just thinking about a client project. Angela looked up from her salad. Which client? It was the first time in weeks she'd shown any interest in my work. Morrison Industries. They're upgrading their entire network infrastructure. Sounds complicated, she said, but her tone suggested she found it boring rather than impressive. It is, actually. They've got legacy systems that are completely incompatible with modern security protocols. I'm basically rebuilding their entire digital foundation from the ground up. Angela's eyes had already glazed over. She nodded politely and changed the subject to Emily's upcoming piano recital. The message was clear. My work, my expertise, my contribution to our family's financial stability. None of it was interesting enough to hold her attention. But Derek's real estate deals? Those were fascinating. Derek's opinions on the music school expansion? Absolutely riveting. Derek's insights into commercial property development? Pure gold. After dinner, Angela announced she had to return to school for a board meeting. On a Thursday night, I asked. Emergency session. We're trying to finalize the building permits before the city council meeting next week. Another lie, delivered with practiced ease. I wondered if she'd always been this good at deception, or if it was a skill she'd developed specifically for this affair. What time should I expect you home? Late. Don't wait up. The same words she'd been using for weeks. I watched her gather her purse and keys, kiss Emily goodbye, and give me a perfunctory peck on the cheek. Then she was gone, off to her real life with her real love, leaving me to play single parent to our daughter. Emily and I watched a movie together, some romantic comedy she'd picked that felt like torture given my current circumstances. But I tried to focus on spending time with her, knowing that whatever came next would probably disrupt her life significantly. Dad, can I ask you something? She said during a commercial break. Of course. Do you think Mom loves us? Like, really loves us? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? Emily curled up in her corner of the couch looking thoughtful. I don't know. Lately it feels like she's just going through the motions, like we're items on her to-do list instead of people she actually wants to be around. Out of the mouths of babes. My 17-year-old daughter had articulated something I'd been feeling but couldn't quite put into words. Your mother loves you very much, I said carefully. She's just been stressed with work lately. But what about you? Does she love you? I looked at Emily's earnest face and felt my heart break a little. She was old enough to see what was happening, but young enough to still hope it could be fixed. I think your mother and I are going through some changes, I said finally. But no matter what happens between us, we both love you. That will never change. She nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. Another casualty of Angela's midlife crisis. The next morning, Halloran called with his first report. Your wife met Derek Stiles at the Riverside Hotel yesterday evening, he said without preamble. They had dinner in the restaurant, then went upstairs to room 412. She left at 11:30 p.m. The words hit me like physical blows. Room 412. They had a room. This wasn't just an emotional affair. It was fully physical, completely real, undeniably over the line. How long have they been using that room? According to the desk clerk I spoke with, Mr. Stiles has been renting it twice a week for the past 3 months. Always pays cash, always the same nights, Tuesdays and Thursdays. 3 months. While I'd been working late to pay for Emily's college fund, Angela had been establishing a regular schedule for her affair. Tuesdays and Thursdays, like a recurring appointment. I need photos, I said. Already got them. Going in, coming out, timeline documented. Mr. Barlow, I have to tell you, they're not being particularly careful. They hold hands in the lobby, kiss in the elevator. Either they don't think anyone's watching or they don't care anymore. They don't care anymore. That was probably it. Angela had moved beyond worrying about getting caught. She was ready for this to come out, ready to end our marriage and start her new life with Derek. The only problem was, she hadn't bothered to tell me. That afternoon, I picked up Emily from school and took her to get ice cream. I needed to see her smile, needed to remember that there were still good things in my life worth fighting for. "You're being extra nice lately," she observed, licking chocolate chip cookie dough from her spoon. "It's kind of suspicious. Can't a father take his daughter for ice cream without ulterior motives? You can, but you usually don't. You've been different since the anniversary party. Sadder, but also, I don't know, more focused. Like you're planning something. She was too perceptive for her own good." "I'm not planning anything. Just trying to spend more time with you before you head off to college. Speaking of which, did you set up that Northwestern visit?" "Already done. Next Friday afternoon. I'll pick you up from school and we'll drive up together." Emily's face lit up. "Really? What about Mom? She's going to be furious when she finds out." "Let me worry about your mother. This is about your future, not her expectations." We spent the rest of the afternoon together, and for a few hours I almost forgot about private investigators and hotel rooms and the slow-motion destruction of my marriage. Emily had that effect on me. She reminded me of who I used to be before I became the accommodating husband who let his wife walk all over him. That evening, Angela came home at her usual time, full of stories about her board meeting and the progress they were making on the building permits. She was a good actress. I had to give her that. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed her, but I did know the truth. Room 412 at the Riverside Hotel. Tuesdays and Thursdays for 3 months. Cash payments and elevator kisses, and my wife living a double life while I played the fool. After Angela went to bed, I sat in my office and opened the envelope Halloran had delivered that afternoon. Photos of my wife and her lover, time-stamped and crystal clear. Angela laughing at something Derek said. Derek's hand on the small of her back as they entered the hotel. The two of them in the elevator, Angela's face turned up to his with an expression I hadn't seen in years. She looked happy, genuinely, radiantly happy in a way she never looked at home anymore. I stared at those photos for a long time, feeling something fundamental shift inside me. The last vestige of the understanding husband, the man who made excuses for his wife's behavior and tried to keep the peace at all costs, he was gone. In his place was someone harder, someone who was tired of being taken for granted, someone who was ready to stop playing defense and start playing offense. I opened my laptop and began researching divorce attorneys. If Angela wanted out of our marriage, I was going to make sure she got exactly what she deserved. Nothing more, and definitely nothing less. The game was about to change, and Angela had no idea what was coming. 3 more days of evidence gathering. 3 more nights of Angela's board meetings and donor dinners and emergency planning sessions. 3 more nights of watching my wife lie to my face with increasing confidence. Halloran's final report was thorough and damning. Photos, timestamps, witness statements from hotel staff. Angela and Derek had been meeting twice a week for 3 months, plus additional encounters at his apartment and various restaurants around the city. They weren't just having an affair. They were living like a couple, just one that happened to include a husband who paid the bills. The breaking point came on Sunday morning. I was making pancakes for Emily when Angela wandered into the kitchen, still in her robe, checking her phone with that secretive smile I'd come to recognize. "Smells good," she said absently, typing a response to whatever message had made her so happy. "Derek texting you already?" I asked casually, flipping a pancake. Angela's fingers froze on her phone screen. "What?" I asked if Derek was texting you. "You know, about the building project." She recovered quickly, but not quickly enough. I'd seen the flash of panic in her eyes. "Oh, yes, he had a question about the permit timeline." "On Sunday morning?" "That's dedication. He's very committed to the project." Emily walked into the kitchen, took one look at the tension between her parents, and grabbed a banana from the counter. "I'm going to eat at Sarah's house," she announced. Her mom's making waffles. Smart kid. She was out the door before either of us could object. Angela and I stood alone in our kitchen, the smell of pancakes and the weight of unspoken truths filling the air between us. "Angela," I said, setting down the spatula and turning to face her. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About Derek. About the Riverside Hotel. About room 412. The color drained from her face. For a moment, she looked like she might deny everything, might try to gaslight me into believing I was imagining things. But then her shoulders straightened and her chin came up, and I saw her make the decision to stop pretending. "How long have you known?" "Long enough. The question is, how long has it been going on?" She leaned against the counter, suddenly looking older than her 41 years. 4 months. It started during the spring fundraiser. 4 months. I repeated the words, trying to process them. 4 months of lying to me, lying to Emily, lying to everyone. I didn't plan for it to happen, Nathan. It just did bullshit. The word came out harder than I'd intended. You don't accidentally rent hotel rooms twice a week for 3 months. You don't accidentally fall into someone else's bed while your husband is at home helping your daughter with homework. Angela flinched. You don't understand. Derek and I, we connect on a level that you and I never have. He understands my passion for music, my artistic vision. Your artistic vision? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You run a music school for rich kids, Angela. You're not Beethoven. Her eyes flashed with anger. See? This is exactly what I'm talking about. You diminish everything that matters to me. Derek would never what? Pay your mortgage? Put your daughter through school? Work 60-hour weeks so you can pursue your dreams? This isn't about money. No, it's about respect. It's about honesty. It's about the fact that instead of talking to me about whatever problems you were having with our marriage, you decided to solve them by screwing another man. We stared at each other across the kitchen island. 15 years of marriage reduced to this moment of ugly truth. I want a divorce, Angela said quietly. I figured that out already. The question is, what kind of divorce do you want? The easy kind, or the kind where everyone finds out exactly what you've been doing? She paled. You wouldn't. Try me. I've got photos, Angela. Timestamps. Hotel receipts. Your entire affair documented in beautiful high-resolution detail. You had me followed? I had you investigated. There's a difference. Angela sank into one of the kitchen chairs, finally understanding that her secret was out and her husband wasn't going to quietly disappear. What do you want? She asked. I want Emily. Full custody. You can have your artistic soulmate, but you're not taking my daughter away from me. That's not negotiable. Emily stays with me. You can visit, of course, but she's not going to be shuffled between households so you can play house with your boyfriend. Derek isn't just my boyfriend. I love him. Congratulations. I'm sure that'll be very comforting when you're explaining to Emily Why Mommy decided her marriage vows were more like guidelines. Angela started crying then, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration, the tears of someone whose carefully planned exit strategy had just gotten complicated. "I never meant for it to happen this way," she said. "How did you mean for it to happen? Were you planning to keep lying indefinitely, or were you just going to disappear one day and leave me to figure it out?" She didn't answer, which was answer enough. I turned off the stove and sat down across from her. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to move out. Today. You can go stay with Derek or your mother or whoever will have you. But you're not sleeping in my house anymore. Our house. It's our house. Actually, it's my house. The deed is in my name, remember? We did that for tax purposes when we refinanced 3 years ago." I saw the moment she remembered, the moment she realized that her accommodating husband had been paying attention to details she'd forgotten about. "You can't just kick me out. I can, and I am. Pack your things and go. We'll figure out the legal details later." Angela wiped her eyes and looked at me with something that might have been surprise. "I don't understand. Why aren't you fighting for us? Why aren't you asking me to stay?" The question was so absurd I almost laughed. "Because there is no us, Angela. There hasn't been for months. You made that choice when you decided Derek's artistic vision was more important than your marriage vows. But we could try counseling, we could what? Pretend you didn't spend 3 months sleeping another man while lying to my face every single day?" She flinched at the crude language, but I was past caring about her delicate sensibilities. "You made your choice," I continued. "Now you get to live with it, but you don't get to have it both ways. You don't get Derek and the house and Emily and my financial support. You get Derek. That's it. That's what you chose." I stood up and walked toward the door, then turned back. "Oh, and Angela? If you try to take Emily away from me, if you try to claim I was abusive or neglectful or anything other than the faithful husband I've been for 15 years, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you really are. The school board, the parents, your precious music community. Everyone will know that Angela Barlow is the kind of woman who destroys her family for a middle-aged real estate agent with a vintage car." Her face went white. "You wouldn't." "I absolutely would. Don't test me." I left her sitting in the kitchen and went upstairs to call Emily. She needed to know what was happening before she heard it from someone else. "Dad? Is everything okay?" "Not really, kiddo. Your mom and I are getting divorced. She's going to be moving out today." Silence on the other end of the line. Then, quietly, "Is it because of Derek?" Even Emily knew. Of course she did. Kids always know more than adults think they do. "Yes," I said. "It's because of Derek. I'm sorry, Dad. Are you okay?" I looked around our bedroom. The bed Angela and I had shared for 15 years. The dresser covered with photos from happier times. The life we'd built together that was now ending. "I will be," I said. "We both will be." When Emily came home an hour later, Angela was loading suitcases into her car. They talked quietly on the front porch while I watched from the living room window. I saw Emily hug her mother, saw Angela crying again, saw my daughter's shoulders set with the kind of determination that reminded me of myself. Emily chose to stay. That evening, after Angela had driven away to start her new life with Derek, Emily and I ordered pizza and sat in our suddenly quiet house. "So what happens now?" she asked. "Now we figure out how to be a family of 2, I said. "Think you can handle having me as your primary parent?" She smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in weeks. "I think I can manage. You're not as boring as Mom always said." "Your mother said I was boring?" "All the time. She said you were stable and reliable, but not very exciting." Emily paused. "But you know what? After watching her blow up our family for some guy with a sports car, I think boring might be underrated." I laughed, and for the first time in months, it felt genuine. Angela was gone, our marriage was over, and everything was about to change. But sitting there with my daughter, eating pizza in our quiet house, I realized something important. I was finally free to stop being the accommodating husband who let people walk all over him. And that feeling, despite everything, was pretty damn liberating. The real question was what I was going to do with that freedom. The divorce papers were filed on a Tuesday. By Thursday, Angela was already posting photos on social media of her and Derek at art galleries and wine bars, looking like the sophisticated couple she'd always wanted to be. The speed with which she'd moved on might have hurt if I hadn't been so busy planning my own next moves. Emily was handling everything better than I'd expected. She'd decided to stay with me full-time, visiting her mother only on weekends. Angela had rented a one-bedroom apartment across town. Apparently Derek's place wasn't suitable for overnight visits from teenage daughters. How romantic. "Dad, you seem different," Emily observed over breakfast on Friday morning. "Like, more, I don't know, focused?" She wasn't wrong. For the first time in years, I felt like I had a purpose beyond just keeping the peace and paying the bills. I was done being Nathan the accommodating husband. It was time for Nathan the strategic thinker to take over. "I'm just figuring some things out," I said. "Speaking of which, we have that Northwestern visit this afternoon." "Still excited?" Emily's face lit up. "Absolutely. I can't wait to see the computer science labs." "Good. Because I called ahead and arranged for you to meet with Professor Martinez in the AI research department. Turns out they're working on some projects that might interest you." "Really? Dad, that's amazing. How did you manage that?" "I have my ways. What I didn't mention was that Professor Martinez was a former client whose entire research network I'd designed and secured. Sometimes it paid to be the boring IT guy everyone underestimated. We drove up to Northwestern that afternoon, and I watched Emily's eyes light up as she toured the computer science facilities. She asked intelligent questions about programming languages and research opportunities, and I felt a surge of pride watching her interact with the professors and students. "This is perfect," she whispered to me as we walked across campus. "This is exactly what I want to do." "Then this is what you're going to do," I said. "Your mother's opinion doesn't matter anymore." That evening, we celebrated Emily's college plans at her favorite restaurant. She was animated in a way I hadn't seen in months, talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning and all the possibilities that lay ahead of her. "Mom's going to hate this," she said, but she was smiling when she said it. "Your mother is going to have to learn to live with a lot of things she doesn't like," I replied, "starting with the consequences of her own choices." Emily studied my face. "You're planning something, aren't you?" "What makes you say that?" "You get this look when you're working on a complicated project. Like you're seeing 10 steps ahead of everyone else." She wasn't wrong. I was seeing 10 steps ahead, and Angela had no idea what was coming. The first step came on Monday morning. I called Crescendo Academy and asked to speak with Mr. Kessler, the school board chairman. "Nathan, good to hear from you. How are you and Angela doing after the divorce announcement?" Word traveled fast in their social circle. "We're managing, thanks. Actually, that's why I'm calling. I wanted to discuss the building expansion project." "Oh. Well, as you know, I've been the primary financial contributor to the school for the past 8 years. Emily's tuition, plus significant donations to the music program, the scholarship fund, the facility improvements. Yes, of course. The school is very grateful for your family's support." "I'm glad to hear that, because I wanted to let you know that my financial situation is about to change significantly. The divorce, you understand. I'm going to need to reassess all of my charitable commitments." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I see. How significant a change are we talking about?" "Well, let's just say that Derek Stiles might want to reconsider his timeline for the building project. Without my family's financial backing, the school might need to explore other funding options." Another pause, longer this time. "Nathan, I hope you're not letting personal issues affect your commitment to the children's education." "Not at all. I'm simply being realistic about my new circumstances. A single father has different priorities than a married man, you understand. I could practically hear Kessler's mind racing, calculating how much money the school stood to lose if the Barlow family pulled their support. Perhaps we should meet to discuss this further, he said finally. I think that would be wise. How about tomorrow afternoon? After I hung up, I called my lawyer, not the family attorney Angela and I had used for routine matters, but a shark I'd researched specifically for high-conflict divorces. Sarah Chen, she answered on the first ring. Ms. Chen, this is Nathan Barlow. I believe my situation might interest you. Tell me more. I spent 30 minutes outlining the details of Angela's affair, the evidence I'd gathered, and my goals for the divorce proceedings. Sarah listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. Interesting, she said when I finished. Your wife's attorney is probably assuming this will be a straightforward no-fault divorce with standard asset division. They're not expecting you to play hardball. That's the idea. For 15 years, I've been the guy who goes along to get along. They think I'll roll over on this too. And you're not going to? Not even close. I want full custody of Emily, I want to keep the house, and I want Angela to understand that actions have consequences. What about spousal support? She can ask Derek for that. She chose him over our marriage. Let him support her artistic vision. Sarah laughed. I like you already, Mr. Barlow. This is going to be fun. The next afternoon, I met with Mr. Kessler at his office downtown. He was a thin, nervous man who'd made his fortune in medical devices and now spent his retirement playing patron to the arts. Nathan, I have to say, I'm concerned about this conversation, he began. The school has always valued the Barlow family's support, and I've always been happy to provide it. But circumstances change. Yes, about that. I have to ask, are these financial difficulties related to Angela's personal situation? So he knew about the affair. Of course he did. Everyone probably knew by now. Let's just say that supporting a music school becomes less of a priority when your wife is sleeping with the contractor. Kessler winced. I see. And Derek's involvement in the building project? That's really up to you, isn't it? I'm sure the school board will want to carefully consider whether Derek is the right person to handle such an important project, given the complications. What are you suggesting? I leaned back in my chair, letting him sweat for a moment. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm simply pointing out that the school's reputation is built on trust and family values. Parents send their children here because they believe in the institution's integrity. If that reputation were to be damaged by scandal, you're talking about blackmail. I'm talking about reality. Derek Stiles is having an affair with your school director. That's not speculation, it's documented fact. How do you think the parent community will react when that information becomes public? Kessler was quiet for a long moment, clearly calculating the potential fallout. What do you want? He asked finally. I want Derek removed from the building project. I want the school board to conduct a thorough review of Angela's management of school funds, particularly any expenses related to the expansion project. And I want a public acknowledgement that the Barlow family's contributions have been essential to the school's success. And in exchange, I'll continue my financial support. Emily will graduate from Crescendo as planned, and this unfortunate situation will be handled discreetly. Kessler nodded slowly. I'll need to discuss this with the other board members. Of course. But I'd encourage you to move quickly. These kinds of stories have a way of getting out, and once they do, they're very hard to contain. I left his office feeling lighter than I had in months. For years, I'd watched Angela's social circle treat me like an ATM with legs, valuable for what I could provide, but not worthy of real respect. They were about to learn that the boring IT guy had been paying attention to a lot more than just their bank accounts. That evening, Emily and I were having dinner when her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. Mom wants to have lunch tomorrow. Emily said. She says we need to talk about my college plans. What did you tell her about Northwestern? Nothing yet. I wanted to wait until I heard back about my application. Well, you might not have to wait long. I made a few calls today. Emily looked up from her phone. What kind of calls? The kind that might help expedite your application process. Turns out, having a father who designs secure networks for major universities has its advantages. Dad, I didn't do anything unethical. I just made sure the right people knew about your qualifications. Your grades and test scores speak for themselves. Emily grinned. You really are full of surprises lately. You haven't seen anything yet, I said. Your mother and Derek think they've won. They have no idea what's coming. My phone rang then. Sarah Chen, my lawyer. Nathan, I have news. Angela's attorney called. They want to settle quickly and quietly. They're proposing a 50-50 asset split and joint custody. What did you tell them? I told them we'd consider their proposal and get back to them. But between you and me, I think they're scared. Word is getting around about the affair, and Angela's reputation is taking a hit. Good. Let them sweat for a while. I'm not interested in making this easy for them. After I hung up, Emily looked at me with something that might have been admiration. You're really not the same person you were a month ago, she said. No, I'm not. I'm done being the guy everyone takes for granted. Good, Emily said firmly. It's about time. That night, I sat in my office planning my next moves. Angela and Derek thought they'd gotten away with something, thought they could destroy my family and walk away without consequences. They were wrong. I'd spent 15 years being the understanding husband, the reliable provider, the man who kept his mouth shut and paid the bills. But that version of me was gone, replaced by someone who understood that sometimes the best defense is a devastating offense. And I was just getting started. The music school's annual spring gala was always the social event of the season for Chicago's cultural elite. This year's theme was Harmony and Hope, which struck me as ironic given that the school's director had recently destroyed her marriage for a real estate agent with commitment issues. I hadn't planned to attend. Divorced husbands generally weren't welcome at their ex-wives' professional celebrations. But then Mr. Kessler called with an interesting proposition. Nathan, I know this might be awkward, but the board would like you to be our honored guest at the gala. We want to publicly recognize the Barlow family's contributions to the school. That's very generous, but I'm not sure Angela would appreciate my presence. Actually, it was Angela's idea. She suggested that maintaining a cordial relationship would be best for Emily's sake. I almost laughed. Angela was trying to control the narrative, positioning herself as the mature ex-wife who put her daughter's needs first. She had no idea she was walking into a trap. I'd be honored to attend, I said. The gala was held at the Palmer House Hotel in a ballroom that sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the jewelry of Chicago's wealthiest families. I arrived fashionably late, wearing my best suit and a smile that probably looked more predatory than I intended. Angela was holding court near the silent auction display, looking stunning in a black evening gown that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Derek stood beside her, playing the role of supportive boyfriend with practiced ease. They made a handsome couple, I had to admit. Emily appeared at my elbow, elegant in the blue dress we'd picked out together. You clean up nice, Dad, she said, straightening my tie. Thanks, you look beautiful. Your mother's going to hate that dress. I know, that's why I chose it. Emily grinned. She wanted me to wear the pink monstrosity grandmother picked out. I told her I preferred something more sophisticated. That's my girl. Ready for tonight's entertainment? What entertainment? You'll see. Mr. Kessler approached us, looking nervous despite his formal smile. Nathan, Emily, so glad you could make it. Nathan, we're planning to make the recognition presentation after dinner. I hope that's acceptable. Perfect timing, I said. I have a few words prepared. Oh, well, that's wonderful. I could see him wondering what I might say, whether I'd stick to the script or go off book. Smart man to be worried. Dinner was a tedious affair of rubber chicken and speeches about the transformative power of music education. I made polite conversation with the other parents at my table, most of whom seemed surprised to see me there. A few brave souls asked about the divorce, fishing for gossip with poorly disguised curiosity. "These things happen," I said diplomatically. "Angela and I want what's best for Emily." What I didn't say was that what was best for Emily was learning that actions have consequences, and that her father wasn't the pushover everyone thought he was. After the main course, Mr. Kessler stood up to make his presentation speech. He talked about the importance of community support and the generosity of families who believed in musical education. Then he called me to the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to recognize Nathan Barlow, whose family has been one of our most dedicated supporters for the past 8 years." I walked to the front of the room, accepting polite applause from an audience that probably wondered why the divorced husband was getting an award. Angela was watching me with barely concealed anxiety, probably wondering what I might say about our amicable split. I reached the podium and looked out at the crowd, wealthy parents, music teachers, board members, and various hangers-on who attended these events for the free champagne and networking opportunities. "Thank you, Mr. Kessler," I began. "When my daughter Emily started at Crescendo Academy 8 years ago, I never imagined how much this institution would come to mean to our family." Safe territory so far. Angela visibly relaxed. "Over the years, I've watched Emily grow not just as a musician but as a person. She's learned discipline, creativity, and the importance of hard work. But more than that, she's learned about integrity." I paused, letting that word hang in the air. Integrity is what separates good institutions from great ones. It's what allows parents to trust their children's education to dedicated professionals. It's what makes a community strong. Angela was frowning now, sensing something in my tone. Unfortunately, integrity isn't always easy to maintain. Sometimes people make choices that compromise the values they're supposed to represent. When that happens, institutions have to decide what matters more, protecting individuals or protecting principles. The room was getting quieter, people sensing that this wasn't going to be a typical thank you speech. Which brings me to an announcement I need to make tonight. As many of you know, my wife Angela and I are divorcing. What you might not know is why. Angela's face went white. Derek started to stand up, but thought better of it. "You see, Angela has been having an affair with Derek Stiles, the real estate agent who was supposed to be helping with the school's building expansion. For 3 months, they've been meeting twice a week at the Riverside Hotel, room 412, while I was at home helping Emily with her homework." The silence in the room was deafening. I could see phones coming out, people starting to record. Now, I'm not here to air my personal grievances. Adults make choices, and they live with the consequences. But I am here to talk about integrity and what happens when institutions compromise their values. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a folder. You see, during their affair, Angela and Derek also entered into some questionable financial arrangements regarding the building project. Money that was supposed to go toward construction costs was diverted to pay for their hotel rooms, their romantic dinners, their weekend getaways. Angela shot to her feet. "That's not true." "Sit down, Angela," I said calmly. "I have the receipts." And I did. Sarah Chen had been busy the past 2 weeks, following the money trail that connected the school's building fund to Derek's personal accounts and Angela's secret credit cards. "The school board has been conducting an investigation," I continued. "They've discovered that approximately $40,000 in building funds were misappropriated over the past 3 months. Money that parents and donors contributed in good faith, thinking it would benefit their children's education." The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Parents were looking at each other, then at Angela, then at Derek, who was now trying to edge toward the exit. "But here's the thing about integrity," I said, raising my voice to be heard over the commotion. "Sometimes it requires difficult decisions. Sometimes it requires holding people accountable, even when it's uncomfortable." Mr. Kessler was making frantic hand gestures, trying to get me to stop, but I was just getting started. So tonight, I'm announcing that the Barlow family will be establishing a new scholarship fund, the Integrity in Education Foundation. We'll be providing full scholarships to deserving students whose families can't afford private music education. Students who understand that talent and hard work matter more than connections and corruption. I looked directly at Angela, who was standing frozen by her table. The fund will be administered independently, with full financial transparency and regular audits. Because that's what integrity looks like: accountability, honesty, and putting children's interests above personal desires. The applause started slowly, then built to a crescendo. Parents were standing, clapping, looking at me with something that might have been respect. For the first time in years, I wasn't just the guy who wrote the checks. I was the guy who stood up and did the right thing. Angela was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Derek had disappeared entirely, probably calculating how quickly he could leave town. Emily was beaming at me from her table, giving me a thumbs up. I returned to my seat as Mr. Kessler tried to regain control of the evening, but it was too late. The damage was done. By tomorrow morning, everyone in Chicago's music education community would know exactly what Angela Barlow and Derek Stiles had done. Emily grabbed my arm as I sat down. "Dad, that was incredible. Did you really catch them stealing money?" Sarah Chen caught them. I just made sure everyone knew about it. What happens now? Now your mother learns what consequences look like. The rest of the evening was chaos. Parents approached me to shake hands and offer support. Several mentioned that they'd never trusted Derek, that something about him had seemed off. Angela and Derek left early, slipping out a side exit while security dealt with the reporters who'd somehow gotten wind of the story. At home that night, Emily and I sat in the living room, still dressed in our formal clothes, eating ice cream and watching the local news coverage of the gala. Former music school director Angela Barlow and real estate agent Derek Stiles are facing embezzlement charges following revelations at tonight's charity gala, the anchor reported. The couple allegedly diverted building funds for personal use during their extramarital affair. Emily muted the television. So what happens to Mom? She'll probably face criminal charges. Derek, too. They'll have to pay restitution to the school, and Angela will never work in education again. And us? Us? We're going to be just fine. You're going to Northwestern in the fall to study computer science. I'm going to keep doing what I do best, solving problems and protecting the people I love. And we're both going to remember that integrity isn't just a word people use in speeches. Emily curled up next to me on the couch. I'm proud of you, Dad, for standing up to them, for not letting them get away with it. I'm proud of you, too, for choosing to stay with me, for seeing through your mother's manipulation, for being brave enough to follow your own path. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the news coverage of what would probably be remembered as the most dramatic charity gala in Chicago history. Angela had wanted a sophisticated life with her artistic soulmate. Instead, she'd gotten criminal charges and social disgrace. Derek had wanted to play the successful businessman who swept the music teacher off her feet. Instead, he'd gotten a fraud investigation and a reputation that would follow him wherever he went. As for me, I'd gotten exactly what I wanted: my daughter's respect, my integrity intact, and the satisfaction of knowing that sometimes the boring IT guy gets the last laugh. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Chen. Criminal charges filed. Asset freeze in place. They won't be bothering you anymore. I smiled and deleted the message. Tomorrow, Emily and I would start planning her college move and figuring out our new life as a family of two. Tonight we were just going to enjoy the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. Hey, Dad, Emily said sleepily. Yeah? Next time someone calls you boring, I'm going to show them the video of tonight's speech. There's a video? Oh, there are like 6 videos. You're probably going to be famous. I laughed, realizing that Nathan Barlow, the accommodating husband who never made waves, was officially buried. In his place was someone I liked a lot better, A man who protected his family, stood up for his principles, and understood that sometimes the best revenge is simply telling the truth.